Hi guys, I'm Madison Mary and welcome back to my channel. Today I have 20 books that I predict will be 5 stars in 2020. So I was originally planning on doing maybe like 10 5-star predictions or something like that, and then I saw Chandler's video and she did 20 and I was like, maybe I'll give that a shot too. So for me, I think it's going to be a little bit more ambitious. But these are 20 of my backlist books, or books that came out in 2019 that I didn't read. These are all books that I own because I found that this year I accumulated a lot of books and I haven't read them. I'm just looking at them and feeling guilty because I've been really prioritizing the arcs that I got this year, and so my backlist books haven't really been getting read, which kind of sucks. So I'm splitting this up. I'm going to start off with the romances, then move on to the fantasy, then the adult fantasy, and then the thrillers. So I have 3 books that are in the romance genre. The first one that I think is going to be a 5 out of 5 stars is Red, White and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. This actually won the Goodreads award for romance and also debut. So if you don't know what Red, White and Royal Blue is about, which is kind of crazy because this book blew up on BookTube this year, but it follows the 2016 elections in which a woman has been elected president, and we follow the president's son, who is Alex Claremont Diaz, and he ends up getting into a public fight of some sort with Prince Henry from the United Kingdom, and so the two of them have to then put on a show for the press to show that there's no bad blood between the United States and the United Kingdom. And when this happens, apparently like a romance ensues and the two boys start to fall in love, so it's male-male romance. And I'm really excited. I'm a bit nervous for this because A, it's really hyped up, and B, there is political talk in here, and politics tends to go over my head. It's just how my brain processes. I've never really understood politics, even when I've tried to. So yes. The next book that I added onto this list is actually courtesy of Chandler, and that is The Kiss Quotient by Helen Huang. I have seen a lot of people rave about this book and I kind of brushed it off for a while now, but I think that I'm actually going to really love it because I have really not heard too many people speak badly about this book. So we follow Stella, who is on the spectrum. She actually has Asperger's and she wants to learn about love. So she hires a male escort named Michael, Michael Fan. And so he is Vietnamese and Swedish, and the two of them come up with like a lesson plan to teach her about romance, and apparently they fall in love. So that's what I know about this one. I think that's gonna be 5 stars too. And last but not least, just because I don't think I'm going to be getting to this book in December, because December when I'm filming this, I don't think. There is like a 5% chance I will maybe read this book by the end of this year, and that is Fix Her Up by Tessa Bailey. I sincerely think that there is 0% chance I will rate this less than 5 stars. I have been highly anticipating this. Steph from Shut Up and Read actually sent me this copy. Steph actually also gave me the copy of Red, White and Royal Blue, so like, Steph, you're OG. But this follows Georgie, and she has always been treated like a kid, and so she decides to go out with her brother's best friend, whose name is Travis, and Travis is a baseball star, but he has a bad reputation, so that's why he dates Georgie, and apparently this is very steamy. I have heard that the second book in this isn't as great. It comes out in January, but people have read arcs of it, so that's kind of sad, but I've only heard raving reviews for Fix Her Up, so I'm really stoked for it, and I can't wait. So moving on, I have one middle grade on this list, and that is The Dark Lord Clementine by Sarah Jean Horwitz. This came out in October, and it has to do with Clementine and her dad, who is the Dark Lord, has, I think, gone missing or something, and so she is now having to take over as the Dark Lord, and that's all I really know about this. And the tagline is, what if the Dark Lord Clementine doesn't want to be a Dark Lord? And I think this is just going to be really fun. I got this when I was at BEA, and I've been really wanting to read it. I really want to get into more middle grade books, so if you guys have any like really great middle grade recommendations, please leave them down below for me. So I'm gonna get into the 2 adult fantasies that I have. The first one is Kill the Queen by Jennifer Estep. The lovely Sarah from Novel Serendipity sent me this book. So we follow Lady Everly, or Evie, and in this world, your magic kind of determines your worth, and she is 17th in line for the throne. But her cousin ends up murdering her mother, the queen, and taking the throne by force. And so Evie is forced to flee. She joins a gladiator troupe, and then she starts to realize that her cousin is very bloodthirsty and really shouldn't be on the crown, and so she decides that with her gladiator training, she is going to kill the queen. I'm so excited for this. I think I'm gonna love it. And I really haven't had anyone talk about this book, and it's been on my radar for a while, and I was super stoked when Sarah got it for me. The other adult fantasy I have is Mistborn, Book 1, The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. I have had this book for eons, talked about it for eons. This one is like yellow with it's been in my family for that long. My dad loves the series, my brother loves the series. Everyone who I know who has read this has loved the series. I know I'm gonna read it and love it. I just need to read it, and I'm just hella intimidated by it because it is a chunker and I'm scared of it. Nothing more to say. Actually, I don't actually know what this is about. I know that in this world it has to do with like, what if when there was a battle the evil person won? So this has to do with like the evil person having won the war and them taking over the lands. And this is a world where magic is based off of metals, and when you eat a metal you get like a certain power from it. I don't know. My brother tried to explain it to me once and it was kind of confusing, so I think that if I read this I'll understand it. So now we're going to get into this is like a slight fantasy book, and that is Rules for Vanishing by Kate Alice Marshall. Julie from Pages and Pens absolutely raves about this, and she actually gifted it to me for my birthday, and I am so excited. It sounds really cool. It's Blair Witch Project-ish, and what happens is, what is it? Yeah. Every year there is a road that appears in the forest, and at the end of it the ghost of Lucy Gallo beckons. Lucy's game isn't for the faint of heart. If you win, you escape with your life, but if you lose, death. So we follow Sarah, whose younger sister Becca disappeared, and they believe that it's because she went to go find the ghost of Lucy Gallows, so Sarah decides to look into it, and they search the forest and the ghost of Lucy. So it's very spooky. I know there's like some magical aspects of it according to Julie, so that's why it's like kind of magical. So now I want to move on to my like typical YA fantasy. First we have Scythe by Neil Shusterman. This, if you don't know what it's about, is about a world where no one dies naturally anymore. So instead we have scythes who glean people, which is basically they kill them to keep the population in control. And we follow 2 people, Citra and Rowan, who were chosen to apprentice a scythe. However, neither of them really wants to, but at the end of the day, one of them will end up becoming a new scythe and the other one will be killed by that scythe. And I've only heard really good things about this. The only complaint I've heard is that the romance in this kind of is like pointless and really shouldn't be in there, but I think because I know that going in, I'm still gonna really enjoy it. I know a lot of people who don't even like fantasy love this book, so that makes me think it's gonna be an easy 5 stars. Next up, we have The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden. So I thought that this was based off of a fairy tale, but apparently I'm wrong. I know that it's set in the Russian wilderness. I definitely want to read this in the winter time. I think that's when it's gonna be perfect for it. But we follow Vasilisa, and what happens is the crops begin to fail and evil creatures come out, and so Vasilisa must defy even the people she loves and call on dangerous gifts she has long concealed in order to protect her family from a threat that seems to have stepped from her nurse's most frightening tales. So this one seems really good. I've heard that it's beautifully written, and I'm just a sucker for books that are written very beautifully and lyrically, which leads me to my next book, which is probably the #1 lyrically written book ever, and that is Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. Believe it or not, I still have not read this. The reason why is because I was waiting for Muse of Nightmares to come out in paperback in the US first so I could read them back to back. I do have plans to definitely read this next year. I'm super excited. I'm a bit intimidated, it is big, but I actually like bought the Illumicrate special edition ones before I even read this, so I'm really hoping it's a 5 stars or else I'm kind of screwed. This has to do with Laszlo Strange, who is a librarian obsessed with the city of Weep. Weep isn't even the city's actual name, it's been stricken from the records and so people only call it Weep. And when people come up to him and ask him to help find Weep, he says yes, and things happen. I know that has to do with like blue people in here and magic. What's her name? Sarai? That was awkward. Next we have And I Darken by Kiersten White. I'm really excited for this. I love Kiersten White's other series, Paranormalicy. Not many people talk about it because it was published so many years ago, but I absolutely adored it and I'm really excited to read this. I think this is a retelling of, shoot, is it Vlad the Impaler? This is a retelling, but like a gender bent retelling of, I really think it's Vlad the Impaler. I really hope I'm not wrong. So I'm really excited for that. It's set with the Ottoman Empire and Kiersten White does a really good job at looking at the actual history and lore of these places when she writes the books. So I really think I'm gonna love this just because A, I love her writing style, and B, a gender bent Vlad the Impaler sounds dope, guys. We then have Children of Virtue and Vengeance by Tomi Adeyemi. I read Children of Blood and Bone this time last year and absolutely adored it. I'm so excited for this sequel. I have really high expectations for it. So Children of Blood and Bone follows Zili, who lives in a land where people who have magic are outlawed, and when things start to go wrong, Zili ends up getting caught up with the crown princess and having to go on the run, and she finds out that she is now the key to bringing back magic to her people. However, she's being hunted down at the same time. This has been kind of dubbed as like an African version of Avatar: The Last Airbender, which is kind of right, but still very different. There's a lot of African lore in this and it's very beautifully written and I'm super excited to see where it's going to go next. I then have Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. This is the collector's edition that I got this year at Epic Reads. I know that people have very mixed reviews about this book, but it's about a girl who, in this place there are people who have red blood and silver blood, and people who have silver blood have like magic abilities and they're a lot of higher class. But what happens is this girl who has red blood actually also has powers, and it's this question of how does she have powers if she has red blood? And I know that there's like, there's such a huge fandom for this series, a lot of talk about betrayal and romance and everything that goes on in this, and I think that I'm really going to enjoy it. It sounds like my kind of cup of tea. So I think I'm gonna actually 5-star this, which might shock some people, but that's what I think, guys. I then have Clockwork Angel by Cassandra Clare. Believe it or not, I have not read this. I've only ever read the first 3 books in the Mortal Instruments series and I'm trying to actually get through the rest of them. And I've heard only the best things about the Infernal Devices series, especially like Tessa and Will is like all I really know. Like Tessa and Will, Tessa and Will. I think that's correct. I think that's what everyone says, right? Tessa and Will, that's who it is, right? I hope I don't have that pairing wrong. I'm gonna feel really bad if I'm wrong. But everyone raves about this being the best out of all the different series that she's written, so I think that I'm gonna 5-star it. Because of that, I loved Cassandra Clare's world, I love the Shadowhunter world, and because everyone else loves this one, I think I'm probably gonna 5-star it. Another continuation I think I'm going to 5-star is Capturing the Devil by Kerri Maniscalco. I was really hoping to finish this entire series this year, but I just don't think it's gonna happen, so I will be reading Capturing the Devil next year, and honestly, I can't imagine myself not giving this a 5-star. I've heard that this focuses a lot more on Thomas and Audrey Rose's romance. I'm just such a huge fan of the relationship that they've formed over the last 4 books in novella that I think I'm going to absolutely adore this and love seeing how their romance comes to a close and how their adventures are concluded. If you guys don't know, this is about Audrey Rose Wadsworth, who is from this very high family. However, her uncle is a forensic scientist. Is he a forensic scientist or just like a mortician? One of those two things. He works with dead bodies, and so Audrey also works under him in secret, and when the Jack the Ripper bodies start showing up on her uncle's tables, Audrey ends up getting brought into the mystery of these dead girls and trying to find out who's actually killing them. And at the same time, her uncle's other protege, Thomas Cresswell, is also there, and the two of them have this very bantering relationship. Okay, next up we have Sisters of Shadow and Light by Sarah B. Larson. This has to do with this world where years ago there was this fortress where these magical warriors were. However, they started disappearing, including Zuhara and Inara's dad on the night that Inara was born. However, on this same night, Inara ended up inheriting her father's powers, and her eyes glowed blue, and she could suddenly control the nature. Why did I say that so weirdly? She could control nature and ended up creating a complete hedge around the fortress. And so for, how many years was it? For 15 years, Zuhara and Inara have been trapped along with their emotionally broken human mother. However, one day a stranger passes through the hedge and our story begins. This one I feel like hasn't been talked about that much, but I am someone who is a huge fan of books that deal with sisterly bonds. I feel like when they're well done, I absolutely adore them. When they're not well done, it can actually completely ruin a book for me. However, I personally have a lot of faith that this book's going to be really great, and so because of that, I think it's going to be a 5-star for me. The last fantasy book that I think is going to be a 5-star read for me is Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. I read Enchantment of Ravens around about 3 years ago now, and I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. However, oh god, this is really shiny. However, if I hold it like this. However, I've only heard amazing things about Sorcery of Thorns. Everyone's raved about it. I've heard only like minimal bad reviews for it, and I personally really love Margaret Rogerson's writing, and so I think that I'm going to love this one as well. We follow this world where libraries are very revered. In fact, we follow Elizabeth, who is a librarian, and she has to look after these magical grimoires because they actually like are literal like moving, talking grimoires. However, one night the most dangerous grimoire is released and someone gets murdered, so Elizabeth is instead charged with the crime, so she has to flee, and she ends up having to turn to her sworn enemy, Nathaniel Thorne, who is a sorcerer, as well as I think he has like a little sidekick person that everyone seems to love. I forget like what his name is, but he has like a sidekick that everyone seems to like absolutely adore. And so it follows how Elizabeth starts to question everything that she's been taught and just trying to clear her name and finding out the truth about the grimoires and the libraries and what it means to be a sorcerer and a librarian. So now I have my 3 mystery thrillers. I actually just received one of them in the mail today, which is really great timing because otherwise it was not going to be on this list. But that is No Exit by Taylor Adams. I was sent this by Carly from Carly Reads, so thank you, boo. This book follows, what is the girl's name? Oh, follows college student Darby Thorne, who is on her way home. However, there is a blizzard, so she ends up having to pull over in a rest stop on the highway, and she's there for 13 hours with 4 strangers. And when she's there, she sees in the back of one of the cars that there is this child trapped in a cage in this person's trunk, and she doesn't know who did this, and she's stuck there with him until the blizzard, you know, passes, and the mystery is about trying to figure out who this is. And apparently this is super messed up and it's crazy. My mom even read this because I told her about it and she really enjoyed it, so I think I'm gonna 5-star this easily. Next up we have I'll Never Tell by Catherine Mackenzie. I'm super excited and think I'm gonna 5-star this because it has a camp setting. So what happened was, how many years ago? 20 years ago, Amanda Holmes was found bludgeoned to death in a rowboat at the McAllister family camp, and no one was ever charged for it. In present day, the McAllister siblings, their parents have suddenly died, and so they have to go back to the camp in order to read the will and decide how the estate will be split. However, when they read the will, they find out that nothing can be split until they solve Amanda's murder. And so it brings up the question of what really happened 20 years ago. And there are 5 people that we're following. We're following Ryan, Margot, Mary, Kate, and Liddy, as well as the groundskeeper, which is kind of random. That makes me suspicious. So I think I'm gonna love this because I love mysteries that are set with a camp backdrop. So last but definitely not least, we have They All Fall Down by Rachel Housel Hall. I have been very intrigued by books that have this sort of a trope. So we follow Miriam Macy, who is sent off to a luxurious private island off the coast of Mexico with 6 strangers, and it sounds like this lovely deal and lovely time. However, it ain't all lovely, because she finds out that they've all been brought there under false pretenses and that each of the 7 strangers harbors a secret. Dun dun dun. So the first mystery book I ever read was And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie, and I freaking loved it. It's what really started me into the mystery genre and wanting to read thrillers. So this is kind of reminiscent of that, and so I think I'm going to 5-star this. I hope that it will be amazing and kind of bring some new twists and it won't be too predictable, but I have high hopes. So those are my 25-star predictions for 2020. Let me know if any of you guys have read these books, or if any of these are books that you want to read. Let me know if you have rated any of these highly, if there are any I should definitely get to first that you think I just like definitely gotta read. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit the like button down below. If you want to see more of me, please subscribe to my channel, and until next time, thanks a bunch guys. Bye!